It's all you.
Okay. This week I am presenting about local and session storage. So we know that when we go online, sometimes like some of our things is stored into browsers. And this is like a replacement for cookies. So local and session storage is there to like, prevent like privacy issues with cookies. And so overall, there's two of them, two ways to store information on the browsers. It's either local or a session. And the difference is that local is able to store the data for like more than just a single session. So after closing the browser, you can still access the data once like the user comes back to the website. But with session, if the user closes a tab or they close like the browser or turns off the computer based. So the local storage is pretty simple syntax. There's really not that many commands. Overall, this is like everything. So we know that there is old browsers that don't support local storage. And so in order to check that, we use this. If type of storage is not equal to undefined, then that does mean that the browser is supported. The way to store items is with local storage dot set item. And so with all of these, it's either local or session storage. So you can replace this here with session storage, and it'll be like the same thing as it'll apply these effects right here. And so to retrieve an item, you use local storage dot get item key to remove it, remove item with the key. And when we store things to the local storage, it's stored like kind of in an index in case you want to iterate with it with like a loop or something. And so this is a simple example. Like we have a variable I with 30. We have a variable name with David. We want to set the item to with the key that's called first name. And then we set the value. Another item with the key amount, and then we set this value. And then if we want to retrieve it, we do get item and the key to which we set it with. Okay, and so to store an array, it's like a little bit different. So overall, the local storage, you store it in strings, like the values have to be strings. In order to store or store arrays, you have to stringify it. An array of vehicles, we can see that we're trying to store it with this key. And then we stringify the array here. And to retrieve it, we do JSON.parse, and then we do a get item. And the object is very, very similar. So here we have an object. It's a state, the name is Washington, city, Seattle. To store it, we store it with a key. We stringify it, then we mention what we want to stringify. That's the array or the object. And to retrieve it, well, we parse it as well. Okay. So associative arrays are not really possible to store them for some reason. I tried to look it up everywhere, but I couldn't find the answer to this. And so instead of storing it like as an associative array, it kind of has to be stored kind of like an object. So the brackets would have to be like this with the curly braces. And yeah, that's how you store things overall. And so I kind of made like a playground kind of to demonstrate. Like, let's say we want to put the key A with the value 1. We store it. key D with a value of 2 and store it. Do show storage, or yeah, sorry, it doesn't work on this computer, but what's supposed to be happening is it shows like a table with the values. And
David, is there a window we're supposed to be seeing right now? Like another window?
Yeah, you guys don't see it?
No, we don't see it, or at least I don't.
Yeah, me either.
Oh, how about now?
Yes.
Yep, that's better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, I was trying to demonstrate this, but I'm not sure why it doesn't work with. Oh, that's why it's because I'm on Edge. Okay, give me 1 second. Let's see if it works with Chrome. So a key and a value, store it.
You might have to go back to the. Okay, there you go.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, so and that's local storage. So we were too close to this browser. We come back, we can still retrieve it since this is local. But if it were to be session, all these keys and values would be gone. And yeah, that's local storage. Is there any questions?
That was pretty great. The only question that I had was about the associative array thing. So is there, you said you weren't able to find like any reason why. Can you tell us, like, did you, what have you, how far have you dug into this? Because it's pretty interesting that it doesn't work, and I'd kind of like to figure out, workarounds and all that.
Yeah, I kind of digged inside, like on Stack Overflow and everything. And the solutions that they came up with is to just replace the brackets with the curly braces. So essentially making it become an object instead of an associative array. And
well, that's crazy. That's pretty simple solution. Makes you wonder. I mean, I guess the arrays must be faster in JavaScript than an object itself, but for general purpose stuff or small scale stuff, it might just be more effective to keep everything as an object, so you don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah, the problem that I saw is that when you try to stringify it, it doesn't really store the information correctly. And when I try to print it out, it just showed curly brackets but with like nothing inside of it. And so yeah, that was like, thought that was interesting that this was the fix right here.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I had one. If you want to go back to your PowerPoint presentation,
Okay.
And then you want to go up a few slides. Right, yeah, right there, actually.
Okay.
Go back to the last one.
Oh, the array.
Yeah, right there. So you have the array of cars, and then you store them with a vehicle key. And then when you retrieve them, how does that look when it prints to the console?
To the console.
Yeah, so when you do that and you're just retrieving the key, I'm curious how that prints.
Okay, so yeah, so we know that it stringifies it.
Right.
And it puts it in local storage as just a string, kind of like just writing just this piece right here out.
Okay.
And so it's not really an array. It'll be just a string that you print out, kind of like writing a paragraph on the screen.
Right. Okay. So it would just print car 1, car 2, car 3 in your console.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Is there any? I'm guessing not that there aren't any methods available to. I guess because you're storing the entire array with one key,
Mhm.
and so any individual keys associated with those individual cars would be an associative array, and then we've just covered the fact that that's not entirely possible with local storage.
Yeah, it was difficult with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and so like once you want to like get the stringified, you know, the stringified array, you can store it in a variable once you parse it. So yeah, that's actually a good question. I don't think I tried this out myself, but I assume that.
Because I'm just curious because it is. I mean, you are starting it out as an array. I'm just curious if there's a way to. I mean, I guess there is that method you mentioned about the index. Is there a way to retrieve a specific car out of that array?
No, I think it'll just parse everything, like the entire array.
Interesting.
Well, I think once you have JSON parsed it, you can use array notation to grab a single element out of that array, no problem. However, like the way it is right now, console log with the JSON parse, I believe what it would output is just the data type. I don't think it would do the whole thing.
Oh,
I'm not sure. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right. If you guys want, we can try it
yeah.
out here.
If that's okay, if we could just test that out just to see,
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah,
because I'd like to know if
okay.
that's if we're able to do it that way, and I don't have to avoid I don't have to worry about the object stuff, which isn't that difficult, but it's a little bit more, at least in my mind, time consuming in order to set up the objects.
Mhm.
All you're really wanting to do is just store an array, and then be able to retrieve individual um, pieces from that array by index.
Okay. So it's something like this, right? Yeah, so this is what it outputs in the console with a JSON parse.
Okay, so it gives you an index.
Yeah, I believe so. It does.
Yeah, and then how would we retrieve that? Would you have to indicate the index at the end of get item? So after get
I
item,
think what you would have to do is like set another variable and set that to parse it. From what I know of, but that's a really good question.
and then can you put an index after the close parameter? Oh, you can. Okay, got it. You're setting it to. I got you. Another vehicle, and then index. Yeah.
But if we do it like a parameter, do you mean by like here somewhere?
Yeah, if like, you didn't want to, I don't know, it doesn't matter. You could set, I mean, it's not like you're setting a,
I think you'd have to do that after the other parentheses stuff because you got.
yeah, one more. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, toss a number in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Sweet.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So you can use array notation, and apparently, when you JSON parse an object, it outputs the whole object. Is that what we were seeing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're JSON parsing and printing the entire um,
Oh no, that wasn't an object. That was an array.
yeah, it's an array. I wasn't gonna call it an object, but yeah, it'll print the entire array with, well, at least to the console, it'll indicate the index,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can retrieve the individual index using that index notation, the array notation. So
Pretty cool.
that's helpful. It's because it's almost, I mean, it's not necessarily an associative array, but it's nice to know that it stays an array. You know what I'm saying? Instead
Right.
of,
Yeah. That it maintains its data type and.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Because if I have, at least for the assignments, the code topics, if I already have my objects and things like that taken care of, I don't want to have to worry about that for anything else. So if I want to store something locally or whatever, I can use that. I can use just a simple array.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I just learned this too. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because then I could just, like, for example, my project, I changed my project recently. It's basically, I'm going to be recreating my own version of IMDb. And like, if I wanted to just arbitrarily, for no real reason at all, other than just to meet the assignment needs, I could store the visited movies in an array inside a session. So the user could potentially view the visited movies if they wanted to retrieve that information.
Now that would only, if it was in the session, it'd only be for the current browsing session.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So how accessible is this to other web applications? Is the local storage limited in scope to only the current page, or is it anything that's running in the folder or on the server, or how much access can you get to it? Do you know?
Yeah, I honestly do not know.
Okay, that's something I'll probably look up.
I was wondering if it's local storage. I wonder if you can write that information to a file or a document. I'm just curious too, like where.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when you do that, it is actually writing it out to a file. Probably.
Where?
It's probably in like your, I want to say in like your user's temp file.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it stay there, or does it get deleted at the end of when the browser closes, or?
No, it's going to stay there. It'll persist.
So it's local storage, meaning in almost a true definition that
it's on your machine.
It's to store the data, and you can retrieve it whenever needed.
Correct.
On that machine.
Right. And now the only trouble with that, well, there's a couple things that I can think of. One is if you like reset all your browser cache and everything, it's gone.
Right.
And then the other would be like if somebody was snooping on a computer and they found that file and it did have, interesting information in it, it would probably be trivial to get it out. So, yeah.
That's true. We're not concerned about security in this class.
No, that's not this class.
I know, that's not this class.
Yes, 470.
But good point. Good point. Cool. Thank you, David. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Very nice. Thanks.
Questions?
I think I'm good. Maxwell, you good?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm going to be kind of covering two topics today because I actually have, I think, at least, an example. So, you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let me just pull up what I'm, I remember here what I was. So yeah, designing, defining, triggering transitions without custom libraries. So I don't have a ton of CSS in this thing, but I do have some transitions. As you can see here, I've got two classes here, and these are for buttons that are on my page, and they use transitions. And the transitions that they utilize are categorized by these two separate classes, by fading in and fading out. And then what happens is when my buttons are loaded, let's see here. So when I hit the submit button on my page, what it's going to do is it's going to add the class fade in to this button, and it's going to add the class fade out to this button.
Slick.
Yeah. And so what that does is that triggers these transitions, because they will also have these two classes. They'll have we'll have these two classes, and then I'm just adding one or the other class to the list of classes. And so when that occurs, it triggers this transition. So let me show you what I got going on here. So I have it set to work right now only with mobile devices, phones, like more specifically the iPhone 6. It takes a little bit of time for to set all that up, but I have it working with iPhone 6, and so that's how I'm gonna have to demonstrate it for you. So right here, we will put in our movie. If you watch, here's the search button, and here's the new button. So if you watch these after I hit submit. So the fade out class was added to the search button, and the fade in class was added to the new button. So you see that transition occur.
Pretty slick.
So that's without using custom libraries. And so what I've tried to at least gather and try to understand, and I could be wrong, so if anybody is smarter than me, which is highly likely, you can tell me that I'm wrong. But what I think they mean by custom libraries is essentially these keyframes. These keyframes are functions that you can assign to an animation. You can assign, well, more specifically to animations, and then you can just call that keyframe here, and then indicate the exact parameters that you want it to occur on. So the other thing that I wanted to show was the transforms without using custom libraries. So I have this transform here that is occurring on the H1 tag within my title div. So you may have seen it do that on my earlier demonstration. So it's this movie deets title right here. And if you watch it, what it's going to do is it's going to move It's going to change essentially change the position of that title. But what it's also doing is it's adjusting my font size and the color. But that's part of this transition. So just the transform is all we're really looking at, and that's all it's doing right there is moving. So when I hit submit on this, you'll see how it moves to the top left-hand corner. So that's transforms without using custom libraries. And then my custom library here is for that scrolling marquee. You see there?
I don't. Whoa, that's loud. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why my audio is kind of strange on this side, but I don't think that that's what he meant by custom libraries. I thought he was talking about actual, like, third-party constructed libraries that you would call, like, oh gosh.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Initially, but I'm not sure, because it's interesting because he had put constraints on the different frameworks and helpers that we were allowed to use. So we were restricted from using like Bootstrap, any jQuery or Angular or React.
Right.
And those are, that was all cleared. That was all established at the beginning of the semester. And so it's just kind of interesting that the code topic he said includes without using custom libraries. So I took that to mean that it wasn't meaning like any frameworks or any other downloadable libraries. And so I assumed, because he had already established that, so I assumed he was referring to custom libraries, I guess, as these. So it just depends, I guess.
Yeah, I think keyframes is just part of the CSS specification. I don't think it's really anything external or whatever.
Custom libraries, I could see a couple different definitions for that, and that's
you're just trying to be kosher.
Yeah, just trying to cover all my bases. Yeah, especially if I'm wrong. So
that's good.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Keyframes really apply to the animations. Although you can perform transforms inside of them, but when you're calling them, you have to really indicate that it's an animation. So I have that scrolling marquee there, and then I've indicated what color I want it to be at different phases of the animation itself. So you can establish that like so. I think that's about it. Are there any questions?
Yeah, can you show what your interface looks like with Casablanca?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. That should keep Brother James happy, right?
Totally. I hope so, at least. So what I did was I also included an animation on a table that I have being dynamically created. And so the table comes when you hit cast. You have the cast of the movie sliding in there.
That's looking pretty good, man. That could actually be pretty useful.
Yeah, I started spending way too much time on this to the point where I was like, I just need to make this my project. So, and luckily enough, he believes it would be complex enough for it to qualify. So that's good.
right on.
Yeah. Any questions about the transitions and transforms? One other thing is that you can string them together like so. So instead of having to indicate a new transition for each one of these, you can just separate them with a comma. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooks.
Cool. You bet, guys.
Nice.